All right, YouTube, it's Detroit's HPTV coming to you with another video on a Thursday morning. Very interesting topic today because we're going to deal with the Piers Morgan Jaguar Wright interview. I was very surprised to see Jaguar Wright appear on Piers Morgan. Now, if some of you not familiar with Jaguar Wright is an artist, an entertainer. You know, she sings. And one of her most popular songs was with rapper Jay-Z, Make the Song Cry. It's been a while. But Jaguar Wright has been, so to speak, whistleblowing on the industry way before these things happened with Diddy. You know, people called her crazy. People tried to discredit her. But most of the things that she was saying have obviously appeared to come true. Her predictions and who was involved with these illegal and illicit activities surrounding the music industry. And she really was whistleblowing on some powerful people, Jimmy Iovine and, you know, the higher ups at Sony, a lot of people. So she was under fire and being discredited and written off as some disgruntled person whose career didn't take the turn that they thought it would, so she's just mad. But a lot of things have been revealed to show that there was a lot of truth in the things she says. Now, she's on Piers Morgan, and she's saying that Jay-Z is worse than Diddy. She's been saying that. She's been saying that for a while, that Jay-Z is worse than Diddy. She says because he's more cunning and he's smarter than Diddy. But when you start looking at the connections between Diddy, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and the Obamas, the Clintons, and a lot of people on that left have been in that circle. So at this point, we're thinking what's going to come out next. So I want you to watch this interview of Jaguar Wright on Piers Morgan and listen to her and listen to what Piers Morgan says. Oh, and ironically, Jaguar Wright called in on a Star Report, and that went left real quick. But what she's going to say on Piers Morgan about Jay-Z is deep, because once you start unraveling Jay-Z and Beyonce, it's going to reach all the way to Washington, all the way to D.C., and a lot's going to come out with this. But I don't want to talk your ear off. I want you to check out this interview. This is for fair usage under the 1976 Copyright Act. It's for commentary, educational purposes. And I'm doing my reaction because it appears to be in the public domain. So we're going to take a look at it. Check this out.
Whose alleged offences could yet swallow many more powerful and famous figures. Diddy is accused of creating a criminal enterprise which engaged in sex trafficking, racketeering, kidnapping, bribery, and forced labour. His lawyers say he'll fight the charges, but after the testimony you're about to hear, you'll be staggered he avoided the attention of law enforcement for so long. I'll speak to a lawyer, a whistleblower, and an insider for an uncensored insight into the showbiz scandal of a generation. And Jaguar, I'm going to start with you. You've been called a whistleblower. You knew Sean Diddy Combs for a long time. You attended a number of his infamous parties. And in 2022, you made headlines after comments where you called him a sex trafficker. And in response, you were called crazy and jealous. Do you feel vindicated by the events of the last few weeks?
No, not at all. Because he's just the beginning. until him and his cohorts are all held to account publicly and legally, the victims, they're not safe.
How bad was it?
That's what I care about. I care about the victims.
No, I understand. How bad was it, do you think, what was going on?
I'm going to tell you right now that me, as a woman who has been in the industry for over 30 years, I've been performing live since I was 13. My first handler was McKinley Horton. I come to find out 25 years later that a scar that was on his face with a very elaborate story he gave me was put there by a woman who he assaulted. To live through these things and hear your elders in the business, people like Patti LaBelle say, just avoid him, honey. And being taught to be just avoid him, honey. It's not good enough. Not when you live through these things, you're still suffering the PTSD created by all of this, and you're talking to a victim that's 20 years younger than you, and she's telling you the exact same thing that happened to you. So you want to know why there's no vindication for me? Because for 4 years, I've been screaming, not just Diddy, but Diddy and Jay-Z are monsters. And the victim-making machine kept going on.
Jay-Z has been notable by his silence since these charges were brought against Diddy. Why do you think that is?
Because that's what he does. He starts little fires everywhere, forces everyone involved to go and carry water while he sneaks away without a response. That changes now, Sean. You must respond. You have no choice.
If you think, or I don't know how many of you guys actually followed this story with Diddy in their history, him and Jay-Z's. How many of you out there actually think that Jay-Z is quiet because he knows at some point he's going to be implicated in things attached to Diddy, and anything he may say at this point will be used against him, even if he comes out with a denial. A lot of people don't realize that if you say, well, I had nothing to do with this, and then later it comes out and you did have something to do with it, your prior statement of not having nothing to do with it makes you incredible in how you can go forward in defending yourself, because you lied in the very beginning. So the right to remain silent, the Fifth Amendment, is best used way before your name even comes up in a situation like this. So Jay-Z is smart. He's not going to say anything because he knows anything that he says will be used against him for real.
Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Robert Kelly, Sean Combs have one person in common, professionally and privately: Sean Carter. This has been a fist of tyranny that has been punching through our culture and our society for decades. It must stop.
There's been obviously a lot of
cruelty-free artistry.
Right, there's been a lot of rumor mill about what has happened in the rap world. A lot of allegations that the misogyny in the lyrics clearly was based on a general misogyny towards women away from the music. And that clearly seems to have been borne out by these charges against Diddy, which, if he's found guilty of all this, he's never coming out of prison. How dangerous do you think?
Thank God.
And it's interesting when he says that. What happened to the Me Too movement? Believe women and these feminists who've been, I am woman, hear me roar. it seems that the more powerful these people are in the industry, the less you hear from these politicians who've been at their parties. Just think, the Obamas and the Clintons who actually took pictures and were being around Diddy and know him intimately, they're all quiet. That's strange.
How dangerous do you think he is as a person?
I think he's one of the most dangerous people I've ever met. A lot of people have been questioning, well, she doesn't really know him. She has no knowledge of him. She doesn't have a picture with him. I'm smarter than Claudia Jordan. I would never take a picture with the devil. Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucien Green.
Great. The new GoDaddy Arrow has AI marketing tools to help small bits.
He was selected to be the demon that he is, to keep the culture in line so the industry could continue to rape it for all of its precious jewels. We have too many lost. The list of lost is ridiculous. And everyone knows Diddy was selected for this job. He's the Judas.
Do you think that if he's cornered in the way that he's been now, that he may start revealing things about other people?
He has no choice. His ego and it.
That's an interesting term when she says Judas, because there's a term called Judas goat. A Judas goat is the goat who leads all the other goats to the slaughter and betrayal. You know what I mean? It's called a Judas goat. But then, you know, the name Judas is definitely attached to Judas Iscariot, the man who betrayed Jesus. But a Judas goat leads their own kind to destruction. And these rappers in the music industry have been leading culture down a road of debauchery and destruction for the last 20-something years, unabated. They practically annihilated R&B, rhythm and blues, and jazz, and has allowed rap to morph into drill rap and drill culture at the hands of these execs. Think about that.
Drug addiction won't allow him to do anything different. Anybody who thinks he's not going to talk is crazy. The simple fact that he's not saying more now only means that the people who have been protecting him all along, who put him in position to be such a horror to the Black community, still find value in him. He's got everybody on tape. They all know it. It's a mess.
For those who were never at these freak-off parties, what were they like?
See, this is the thing. Everything that I'm about to say to you is not my firsthand knowledge. It is my firsthand witness account experience. I was a sex worker. I was a dominatrix before I got my record deal. That's how I know how the dark world and the sex world and the entertainment world run hand in hand. That's why the movie Blink Twice is so important. Salute to Zoe Kravitz. The sex workers that I have worked with throughout the years and continue to work with even to this day have worn hidden cameras. I have my own tapes. I've seen what they do. The ritualistic behaviors, the drugging, putting girls in the suitcases, dumping them in alleyways. It's horrifying. And it's all done under the protection of this is going to be paid off. There's another NDA. This is going to be, it's terrible.
It seems to have been something that a lot of people knew about, but people were simply too scared to talk about.
Everyone knows. And every person that's sitting there trying to act surprised knows very well. The whole point of this, like Cat Williams said when he sat with Shay Shay earlier this year, the whole point of this is for them in a coordinated effort to pretend like none of it is real for the public's perception. But everyone knows what's going on, and it's been going on for years. It's been going on before Diddy. See, people keep looking at him like he's the Sputnik that came out of nowhere. This is someone who was designed to be what he is. We got to stop making Diddies. And if we're going to do that, then we got to go back. We got to go back to even further the mentors of these people. Because Diddy was taught how to do what he does systematically. And Clyde Davis has been his greatest teacher.
Look, Clive Davis is not here to respond to that, nor is Jay-Z. But a lot of people, famous people in the music industry, have been notable, like I say, by their silence so far. It's also been notable that since the Me Too campaign began in 2017, the music industry has largely avoided the same scrutiny that other industries have had. Why do you think that is?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Since Me Too began in 2017, the music industry has largely avoided the same kind of scrutiny that other industries have had. Why do you think that is?
Well, because the Me Too movement was a ruse. It was a setup. It was a scam. I'm saying that now, publicly. Dream Hampton spearheaded the Surviving R. Kelly campaign, which fueled the Me Too campaign. And that was all funded by Sean Carter to make sure that Robert Kelly went to jail. Get his lick back. Why is nobody understanding that Dream Hampton was being financed and ran by Sean Carter? They were able to go and get all of these witnesses because he was there with Robert Kelly. How does Jay-Z sit down with Gayle King and she not ask him one question about the intersection between him and Aaliyah and Robert Kelly? This is insane that people keep refusing to see what's right there. If the Me Too movement were real, why aren't they speaking now? They've also been very quiet in this time of the diddler's downfall.
Jaguar,
guess they're on vacation.
If this goes to court, Jaguar, do you think the world is going to be shocked by what comes out?
Oh, absolutely. I just don't know why they are. It's been happening in front of everyone's faces for decades. For decades.
How many victims?
What's the difference between me and Judy Garland? Social media.
How many victims?
There was none for her.
How many victims potentially do you think there could be?
Thousands. Thousands. I've talked to hundreds that I deal with still myself. I have 3 victims right now who are willing to give testimony about not only what Mr. Carter has done to them, but his wife as well. They're a nasty little couple. They do nasty things.
What do you think happened with Kim Porter?
Keeping people against their will. Putting people on planes while they're unconscious, just like Aaliyah got on that plane. Unconscious. There's a lot of things that people don't want to talk about, Piers.
Listen, like I said, Jay-Z and Beyonce are not here, unfortunately, to respond to that.
I know. I'm just being honest with you.
You're perfectly entitled to your views, obviously. Kim.
he keeps saying Jay-Z and Beyonce is not there, but their names have been consistently coming up, you know, as it relates to Diddy and as it relates to these things with these powerful people. And in the back of my mind, I keep thinking about Barack Obama and his affinity toward not only Diddy, but Jay-Z and Beyonce. You know, we consider these people power couples. But if they are power couples and so powerful, why do the people who support them in the communities they come from suffer with poverty and debauchery and destruction so much? Because they have been at the helm of culture, of what they call culture, which has become just a culture of destruction. So it's getting interesting because they said Jaguar was crazy.
Porter,
Yes.
a new book claims that Diddy may have been involved in her early death. What do you think of that?
I think people should really look into that more. I am friends with Albie Shore. I love him. I love his children. I knew Kim. We used to all hang out together at the Kit Kat Club back in the mid-90s when Diddy was first starting his reign. I watched that whole thing happen. And everything that Albert has been through, every attempt on his life that has been ignored by the authorities, it all leads back to Diddy. And everyone knows it. The wiretapping of the phones, putting air tag on children during visits. These are normal practices that these people do.
Jaguar, I've got to leave it there. I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for caring.
I do care. Thank you very much. Well, I'm joined now by the host of Vlad TV, DJ Vlad. DJ Vlad, I mean, pretty horrifying listening to these testimonies. What did you make of what you just heard?
Well,
Have you noticed that when it comes to these downfalls, these arrests, these prosecutions, Vlad always is somewhere in the mix. You know, Vlad is the premier culture vulture. You know, I mean, Vlad is such a culture vulture. He strikes channels for using content, and he's made his whole career off the exploitation of Black Americans in the Black community. And whenever there's something really disastrous or foul, he rears his ugly head. So let's check him out.
Jaguar Wright is known to be a conspiracy theorist. I don't really co-sign anything that she says. I've never had her on my show, and I don't have any plans to have her on my show.
You don't believe her?
She had an album in 20 years, and a lot of this stuff is just stuff she's heard, things she's making up, and so forth. I'm not saying that there aren't...
Let me say this. Vlad comes straight out discrediting her, but Vlad has been a part of a lot of different things as well. Even like Uncle Luke, Luther Campbell. A lot of people have connections, and there's a nexus between them, Diddy, the entertainment, and these allegations. So they love to say that something is a conspiracy theory, because when they start calling you a conspiracy theorist, they're really setting you up to be discredited and censored. That's code word for she needs to be censored. Think about it.
Serious things that Diddy may have done, but yeah, I can't co-sign anything that Jaguar Wright is saying, if that's your question.
Well, I mean, obviously, since we last spoke, there have now been these charges against Diddy, which are incredibly serious. You didn't think at the time we last spoke that he was likely to face these charges. Are you surprised it's come to this?
I'm not surprised, because I feel that law enforcement in general is reactionary. I think that when you look at high-profile individuals, their arrests, indictments usually come after a documentary, a big TV show, or in Diddy's case, it was this huge lawsuit that Cassie filed that everyone got to see all the details and all the attention that came to it. So, yeah, it wasn't a surprise that it actually happened because you've seen this happen over and over again. R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, all the attention that they got, and then now Diddy. So, yeah, I mean, this is ultimately the world that we live in. But he'll have his day in court. And, you know, his lawyer said that he's not going to take a plea deal because I think a plea deal at this point is probably going to be very heavy-handed, probably 20 years plus. So it makes sense for him to go to court. But we'll ultimately see what happens, you know, because we haven't really seen, apart from some of the funny stuff of, oh, there's 1 million bottles of lube that they found there. I'm sorry, 1,000 bottles of lube and so forth. We have yet to really see what the evidence is. And I think once we see the actual evidence, then people will actually formulate an opinion on what's happening right now.
Do you think there's a lot of people in the rap world?
See, a lot of this stuff be double talk. I don't know how many people out there who've actually been arrested. By the time they come and arrest a person, there's been a complaint, a certain amount of investigation before it's ever taken to a prosecutor, before the warrant is ever really issued. And the more powerful you are, the more they stick to crossing their T's and dotting their I's. It's not about the public seeing what they have. It's about the evidence presented in front of a jury. No prosecutor initiates a case that they think they can't win. You know, I had a subscriber who was telling me about doing a story on somebody, and they were saying that the individual was lynched. And then I hadn't really researched the story, but I said the individual had a trial and a judge. So there had to be some evidence. See, people will put that out there. It all depends on what narrative they're trying to push. You're not going in front of a judge and a jury with zero evidence. Because to even be arrested, there has to be probable cause. Just a footnote in this statement. In this video.
In particular, who are pretty fearful right now of where this may all lead. Is it a bit like the Epstein scandal, do you think?
I don't really think so because, ultimately, everyone wanted to go to Diddy's white parties when they were happening. If I got an invite, I would go. But there's a party within a party. There's the actual party where the big celebrities go to, the Howard Sterns and the Leonardo DiCaprios and so forth. You never hear of any of them really being involved in any of this stuff. They go home, at 2, 3 o'clock a.m. And then there's the private parties that seem to involve the sex workers and probably certain types of people that are kind of in an inner circle. No. And we'll see if those names ultimately come out.
Honestly, why is Vlad there? It's interesting enough that Piers Morgan decided to interview Jaguar Wright. But why is Vlad there?
Or not. I think that when it comes to a situation like the feds, cooperating is a very big thing. And I think if Diddy cooperates and gives up some big names of actual crimes that they committed, that'd be a way of actually, lessening the amount of time that he does or possibly even walking away.
What had you heard about Diddy over the years? Obviously, people knew he had parties. They knew he was a big rap star or something. But the nature of this kind of thing. I'm asking because when I watched, for example, I met Diddy a couple of times. He was always perfectly charming to me.
Yeah.
But I've met a lot of people who were charming and turned out to be monsters. The video that came out of showing him beating up his then girlfriend in a hotel corridor was so shocking that when I watched it, I remember thinking, well, this guy is capable of anything. A man that would do that, who's that famous, who would do that to a woman in a hotel corridor, public hotel corridor, if he's prepared to be that violent in public, knowing there might be cameras around, he's prepared to do pretty much anything, was my conclusion. I mean, what did you hear about him over the years?
Yeah, I mean, that tape was horrific. And after our interview that we did with Roger Bonds, who I helped to bring onto the show, I did my own interview with Roger Bonds. It was a very in-depth, I think, two-hour interview where he goes into actually witnessing a lot of women that were physically abused by Diddy. I mean, not only Cassie, of course, which he saw multiple times, but Kim Porter. He was on a trip where Kim Porter got her nose broken allegedly by Diddy and flew in a plastic surgeon to fix it. There was a personal chef that Diddy beat up. I actually heard voicemails of her describing it. This wasn't even something that she wanted to come publicly with. There was other women as well that I got details on. So I think that Diddy has a long history of violence towards women, but also men, because there's also the Steve Stout incident. If you remember that whole situation, he was in a music video with Nas, Hate Me Now, and there was a scene where Diddy was on the cross like Jesus, and I guess he went to Steve Stout afterwards and said that he wants to take that part out. That part wasn't taken out, so Diddy and his entourage show up at Steve Stout's office and they beat him with a champagne bottle, which they ultimately settled out of court for. So I think there's a lot of violence that has happened around him, and I think at this point it's just catching up to him.
There's lots of rumor mills about him being secretly gay or bisexual or whatever. I mean, I don't care, but do you think there's much credence to those?
I mean, it's hard to say. I have heard, because remember, for example, the Wendy Williams situation. She was on the radio in New York, and she said that she had photos of Diddy in a gay type environment of some sort. And I had someone actually explain to me what that photo was after the fact. And Diddy came in and threatened to sue the radio station unless she was fired. And she was fired, and she had to go to Philly for, I think, 5 years or something like that. So there was that. I'm not sure how true it is, because it was just a photo, and a photo, could mean a lot of different things. I mean, the fact that he's a cuckold, that he likes to masturbate while watching women that he's with have sex with other men. I don't know. Is that gay? Is that bisexual? Is that just being a cuckold? It's hard to say. It's not something that I'm actually into. But I'm sure it blurs the lines between homosexuality and bisexuality somewhat. But I don't think he's exclusively gay, because he has a lot of children. It's hard to really say, and it ultimately doesn't really matter. And, I've talked about this in my interviews. I think if he came forward and said, hey, I'm a bisexual man.
Enough of this. Because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, Piers Morgan, why is Vlad there? Offering his opinion and what he's heard in the rumor mill. Because one thing we know for sure, what started with Diddy and is now looking like it's headed toward Jay-Z, allegedly, from what Jaguar's saying, because Jay-Z is awful quiet, which is smart, to say nothing. Say nothing until you see what's coming your way. That's how Jay-Z's going to play it, because Jay-Z's smarter than Diddy. Remember how Diddy came out and said that he had all the allegations against him was false until the video came, then he had to come back out and apologize. That wasn't smart. He should say nothing. But it's interesting that Piers will bring Vlad out there. You can see the rest of the interview, because next Piers Morgan is going to talk to an attorney. I really wanted to get you guys to see this part, and how after Jaguar leaves, they really bring Vlad out to paint the same narrative as she's not a credible person to speak to these issues. But how would he know? As much as he thinks he is a part of culture, he's still an outsider looking in. These are some weird times. Y'all, if y'all interested, y'all can follow this story. But these times are every day there's a new revelation. Every day something else jumps right out at you. So sign to our Detroit. This is Detroit's HPTV. Support the nonprofit Detroit's Black Thought and Action Collective. The Cash App is in the description. Salute to all patriots, and keep your head on a swivel. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.